you feeling stuck, lost, tired, or uninspired? We've all been there, including myself. I'm Coach Des, mindset motivator and lifestyle entrepreneur. I'm here to tell you that the best, unapologetic, and limitless version of yourself is yet to come. The Born Unbreakable podcast is here to inspire just that. With motivating guests from all different walks of life and around the world, their stories will empower you to unlock abundance and your unbreakable spirit. Do you need accountability? Reach out to me for a free consultation of how I can support you in reaching your maximum potential. This episode is brought to you by Sherpa Way Marketing. Are you a business looking to gain greater visibility online through search engine optimized content? Maybe you need effective ad campaigns to kickstart or bolster traffic to your website. Sherpa Way Marketing has seasoned experts that are bilingual in English and Spanish. Let them take the guesswork away and enhance your brand positioning with their comprehensive marketing services. Go to sherpawaymarketing.com. That's SHERPAWAY marketing.com to schedule your free 45-minute consultation today. Welcome to the Born Unbreakable podcast. I have an exciting guest today who I made a confession to a few minutes ago because my guest, Ralph Anania, is in Australia, which happens to be a place that I want to visit because I have this dream. And I can't remember if I talked about this on my show before, but now you'll know if you didn't already, to adopt a koala. And plus there's so many other things I want to see in Australia, in Melbourne, in Sydney. And anyways, I got this charm bracelet recently and very intentionally put that on there as a reminder to myself that I'm going to make it happen sooner rather than later. So that's just a fun story to start with, but we're not here to talk about my dreams of in koalas. We're here to talk about Ralph and his story, which has totally inspired me, which is why he's here today. And I know that his story is going to inspire you because that's what this show is all about. But a little bit about Ralph is that he's been in the business realm for 38 years. So he's got a lot to share. He's an entrepreneur, as I mentioned, in Australia. He's an international speaker and an author of a book that we'll talk about a little bit more today called Life Done Right, Timeless Wisdom to Give Hope and Inspiration for the Future. He's an authority in the space of business transformation. And his mission really is to enrich the small business community by encouraging sustainable change. So not just that one time, okay, this has done a great job, but really the longevity of being able to get results and to achieve growth and to inspire, generation after generation of people that carry on businesses. And so he's very passionate about results and teaching people to overcome the things that he had to maybe learn the hard way in his 38 years, so almost 4 decades of experience. But Ralph, thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule, which you could be doing something else right now, but you're here with me talking, and you're in a totally different time zone because, as everyone knows, I'm here in Las Vegas. So I appreciate you taking the time today.
Des, it's an absolute pleasure, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else at the moment. So thank you for having me on your show.
I'm just so excited to dig in. But, a fitting place to start would be you've been in this for almost 4 decades, doing business, your own personal businesses, but obviously connected to so many of your clients and others. What was your journey into entrepreneurship? What was young Ralph's story of getting into this space?
So I've been in business for myself for 38 years, but I actually started out in the family business. I was born and raised. My parents had a small fruit stall when I was growing up as a kid. So from a very young age, my father used to take me with him to visit all the local farmers and the central markets. I was taught a lot in those early years, and I learned from just basically watching and following my father through his journey, and I didn't realize it at the time. And as a father would do, they just basically guide their children, and that's all my dad was doing. But as I got older, I started to appreciate and reflect on what I had learned from my dad. The negotiation skills that he shared, and that I would observe and watch how he treated his customers in the store, with kit gloves, and making sure that they had an experience when they came to our store. All of that was basically what got me through to wanting to own my own business at the age of 20. So the entrepreneurial journey probably started at around 4 or 5 years of age.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah,
And what better place to learn than the family business?
yeah.
I think everyone can relate to growing up and seeing things and going, one day I'm going to do something myself. So what was the first when you were 20? So you mentioned that. What was the first adventure that you got yourself into?
So having the early life experience in retail, um, and that was one of the first businesses I went into. So I'd purchased a ailing fruit market in the northern suburbs of Sydney that was had a revenue of around about $600,000 a year, and I purchased that with my two brothers, a younger brother and an older brother, and the three of us went into business together. And um, that was sort of the start of our journey. And within 5 years, we'd taken that business from 600,000 annual revenue to 10 million in annual revenue in 5 years in one store. And that really showed, we paved a journey and showed that we were good at what we did. We delivered an experience. The most important thing for us at the time, and still is today, I guess, is in retail, you have to give an experience. People come to you to purchase product, but they also want an experience when they leave the store, because that's what makes them come back time and time again. So there's a lot that goes into dealing with food, and especially fresh produce, because you're relying on Mother Nature for the quality of the product. And a lot of people don't realize it, but Mother Nature has a big effect on the quality, and it plays a big part in when you're delivering that to consumer. So you learn a lot about running a retail business when you're dealing with a consumable, that a product that has a very short lifespan, and because you need to be continually selling. So that was the first, I guess, main business that went into, and then just continued to grow. And since then, I've built now 31 companies. I've taken one of them, our flagship company, to 136 plus million in annual revenue, where we had 350 staff in 7 locations. And predominantly in fresh food and food manufacturing.
Mhm.
Have had interest in other businesses along the way, and have acquired businesses. But yeah, it's been a journey. It's been a journey, and a long learning journey that I'm still learning today. And if you don't learn, you sort of become a little bit complacent when you're not growing and learning. And that's how I sort of see it. If you're comfortable, comfort sort of becomes complacency, and complacency then is when all the issues start to happen. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. I just wanna take a moment though, because you have such humility when you're talking about your numbers. I'm going 5 years, 600,000 to 10,000,000. Oh, that's over 10 times the growth in a short amount of time. So yes, it's been a journey, but one could argue that that level of growth in that one company could have taken a lot longer than that. So that brings me to the question about scale, because a lot of businesses, whether it's retail or something else, is always contemplating that in their strategic plan. How do we scale? How do we go from this number of staff to that number of staff? How do we get more locations? What does that look like?
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you examined when you're on this path over the course of 5 years to get to where you are now?
Yeah, that's a great question, and there's a lot to unpack in that. The mistake that most people make is that sometimes they get carried away with what they're doing and focus only on the delivery of the product. And some people fall in love with their product, and then they try and expand, and they find that they're not doing as good as they thought they would or what they're doing in their first location, because the emphasis has been too much on the product, and they think that everybody will just automatically excuse me, automatically buy from them, or buy their product because they think it's so great. Reality is that, you know, a business is like building a business is like building a house. If you don't have the foundations that are set correctly, you really can't build a sustainable business, because at some point it will collapse because you haven't given its full capacity to be able to, or platform, but to be able to grow upon. So I always, from my own experience, I always find that you need to really understand who your client is, who is your client avatar, who is going to buy from you regardless of what product or service you have, who is going to buy from you and why. Um, some people make the mistake and base their business on price. And it is really interesting because most people don't understand the price. That price doesn't necessarily make that much of a difference in retail, and it's been proven year in, year out. And I haven't had these figures for a couple of years now, but I can tell you one thing: when I was in retail for many, many years, I would always follow trends and always get an understanding of what value people place on a price. And reality is there's that 87% of consumer, on average, that this is on a global scale, on average, and this is in food shopping, 87% of consumer did not look at price. Only 13% would focus on price. So therefore, it's not necessarily about how cheap something is, or how low the price is. And certainly there are demographics where certain areas, the demographic can't afford certain things. So they do focus a little bit more on price. However, that is still a niche. You should always be delivering the same experience, because it's the experience that keeps people coming back. And if you have the experience and the quality of the product, the price is irrelevant. Because if you take a product home and it will last in your fridge for a week, I'm talking about a perishable product. If you take a product home and it will last in your fridge for a week and you're not throwing it out, then that decision is what will make you go back and buy from that store again. If you take a product home and it goes off in the first 24 hours, the price is when you'll realize that you paid too much for it because you've had to throw it out. So
Mm-hmm.
it's about the experience, and you've got to build your business based on what value you're going to give the client. And if you're giving great value, great service, and the quality of a product, if you're selling a product, is there, and if you're selling a service, then it's the experience and the value that you're giving the client. Then you can actually grow. Now, to expand and go into multiple locations, you look at the product or service that you're delivering, and you look at who is out there that will need your product or service, and find a niche or an area that you're doing something that is different to what everybody else is doing. Because if you're doing the same thing, then people don't really recognize or understand your value. And there are a lot of people out there that give great value and great service and then don't tell anybody about it. And I say to them, you're the world's best kept secret. You do have to do a little bit of marketing. You do have to tell people about you. And there's nothing wrong with, promoting your services or your business, unless, you're a solopreneur and you can rely on referrals. Then that is obviously different. But if you're looking to build and scale a business, most importantly is understand the industry that you're in, understand what it is that you can deliver, and remember that you can't serve everybody. Find a niche, give a great amount of service and effort to that niche, And it doesn't matter if you expand either side of that, but stay in your lane. Most people tend to want to do all things for everybody and then don't achieve anything really well. And I always, when I've shared my experience on stage around the globe, I tell a story and as an example, and I say, if you saw a sign, if you were driving down a busy road and you saw a sign that said "World's Best Mechanic, inquire within," you wouldn't really take much notice. You just keep driving and say, yeah, fair enough. It's the world's best mechanic, big deal. But if you saw a sign that said world's best mechanic specializing in Ferrari and you were a Ferrari owner, would that grab your attention? The answer is yes. Now, as a Ferrari owner, when you drive into that mechanic's workshop and you see a BMW or a Porsche or a Mazda or a Toyota, are you going to really worry about it? And the answer is usually no, because the expertise and experience that person is putting up is that they're specializing in Ferraris. Now, anyone that has a Ferrari has a second car, and their car could be a BMW or could be a Toyota, but they generally have another car, and they may just take that other car to the same mechanic. But the point I'm making is that you can't just say I'm the world's best mechanic, because then it's like, oh yeah, well, big deal, you're the world's best mechanic. But the niche is I'm specializing in Ferrari. That doesn't mean that I can't work on other cars. It just means that I'm putting myself out there as an expert in that field. And that's what you've got to do in business. And it doesn't matter what business you're in. If you've got a business that has multiple products or services, what is the best and the one thing that you're really clear on and you're well known for and you want to become better known for, and that's what you should focus on. Once you've got that foundation right, you can then expand from that.
You're speaking my language, Ralph. I'm sitting here nodding my head because when you were talking about price, the only thing I could think about was experience. As a consumer of products, a lot of food products, but a lot of other retail products too, I'm always looking for the experience. I'm willing to pay a higher price because I want the consistency of the kind of experience that I get, and so I that rings so true to me. And when you're talking about niche, I I think that is one of the biggest traps that people get into, because as entrepreneurs, it's just too easy to say, but there's these other 5 things that are really cool and interesting, and we could help that situation or those people too. And then you've spread yourself too thin, and all of a sudden you are no longer having that emphasis on an expertise that people are looking for. That's
Yeah,
such a great example about the cars.
yeah.
Oh, so now those are some key areas of what to look for as you're growing. So then there's an important part, which I know is important to you, is the sustainability.
Yes. So one of the biggest mistakes that most entrepreneurs make is that they title themselves as the CEO. And everyone loves that title because, it's the highest title in an organization. Reality is, though, that most of those people that give themselves the title of CEO are generally chief everything officer. And you can't be chief everything officer and then expect to grow a sustainable business. And when I am sharing my wisdom with my clients and I'm mentoring them, I will always say that one of the things that I learned later in life, and I still speak about it all the time because it is so important, is time. And as you get older, the time that we have is very limited. So when you are busy trying to do something that you don't enjoy doing, but you're doing it because you think you're saving money, and you could pay somebody else to do it in a tenth of the time and do it better than you, where is the value? And what could you be doing? So in my business, I always surrounded, in all my businesses rather, I always surrounded myself with people that were experienced and experts in whatever it is that I needed done. Because there's again, there's multiple stories, but there's a story that I share all the time, and it's one of my very, very closest friends is an accountant and a financial genius. And I understand numbers and I get through very, very well because I did accounting. It's the only thing that I went through, but I didn't finish it. So I understand numbers and spreadsheets and can read spreadsheets very well. However, if I have to sit and do a spreadsheet of some sort, it could take me hours. I don't understand the formulas. And at the end of it, I don't know if it's actually going to be accurate. Whereas if I hand it over to this friend of mine, it would take him 10 minutes. It will be accurate because he does understand the formulas. And I know that I'm going to get something that is going to be meaningful. So I sit there and I think, why do I want to waste 4 hours in trying to create something that I know is not going to be right when I've got someone who can do it in 10 minutes and do it accurately? And that's where most entrepreneurs get caught up. They get caught up in trying to do everything themselves. And it's much better to pay somebody that loves what you don't like doing because they will do it better than you. And that allows you to then be the visionary and take the time and look at who else out there will value what you're doing and allow you to grow and expand your business as long as you've got the right people in place. And I would always say and still say today, the actual CEO role in an organization can be the hardest or the easiest. The only difference is the team that surrounds you, the team that you have behind you to be able to drive your vision forward. And if you've got the right team that you share your vision with, and everyone in the organization knows their role, you'll flourish.
Oh my gosh.
Because the other side of that, Des, is that when you have some challenges, and you will, every business has challenges, right? If you don't have some challenges, you're not growing because there's always something that you can't see. You've got a good team around you. The pressure is off with you having to make the decision of what you should and shouldn't be doing because you would sit and you would brainstorm it with your team and you would get everybody's input. So if things are a bit difficult or things have gone a bit pear-shaped, everyone pulls in together, everyone gives their input, and you're able to move forward because everyone's going to do their bit moving forward. And it's like, rowing a boat. If everyone's rowing in the same direction, you're going to get there a lot quicker. So, and which is another mistake that I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs make. They have the vision. They're great people. They've got great aspirations, but they don't share it with their team. So their team don't know what journey they're on because the CEO hasn't shared the vision. So it as an entrepreneur, and I'm talking about, I'm not talking about corporate. I'm talking about, the mum and dad businesses, and they're, a mum and dad business can still be pretty large. There's some large, privately owned organizations. But the most important part is that you understand that for your business to grow and flourish, your team, your people that are around you have to know what journey they're coming on with you because they will help you achieve the goal and get to the destination.
Yeah. Where are we headed as a team? But I think it's just so huge. I feel like the title of this chapter of the podcast is "Stay in Your Lane." Um, you said that earlier,
Yeah,
but I do think it's one of the biggest pitfalls. And honestly, I think one of those big components of leadership is control.
yeah,
When you're the chief everything officer, you have to make decisions about control, and that's hard for many leaders to let go of. Is if I relinquish this duty, now I'm relying on somebody else. But to your point, that's their lane, that's their expertise. And it's one of the biggest ways that you foster trust is by having good communication to understand from everybody who is in there. It's kind of like the president. They can't do everything, but they have special administration that's focused on different aspects of running the country, and that's, informs him or her on, well, where do we need to focus our attention, where do we need to focus our energy. So but I think it's a hard thing to work through, especially when you're getting started and you're trying to pick your A players.
Yeah.
It's like, ooh, how do I go through this process of choosing a team that I can trust, that I could count on? Which leads me to a question, because you're talking about building a team, which I think is incredibly important. Communication is important. What about inspiring people? Because a lot of the things that one of the common things that have come up during this time is like the great resignation. That's this term that's thrown out in business of, people finding other opportunities, seeing greener grass, that kind of thing, which it's going to happen. It doesn't matter what business, you mentioned industry, people are going to always have opportunities. What are the ways that leaders keep people for as long as they can to stay engaged and want to have longevity in a company, so you have a cohesive unit that's working together on growth and goals?
So one of my main focuses in growing my businesses, and I've had this for many, many, many years, is that you train your people so well that they can leave and go and get a job anywhere else because they've got the skill set now to be able to do that. But if you treat them so well that they have no option but to stay because they will never get treated like that anywhere else, you'll have a team forever. That's the hardest part for a organization, because especially some of the older businesses, they tend to let ego get in the way. And there's the old school way of, ruling with an iron fist, which doesn't work, hasn't worked for a long time, might have worked in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, but it doesn't work today. Um, I Training is very, very big for me. I believe in training my team and giving them the opportunity, and allowing them enough autonomy to be able to put their stamp on their position. What makes people leave is that they have this aspiration to be able to do better and want the business to grow, because everybody tends to, if they really are engaged in the business, they make it their own. So they tend to have that ownership of their own lane, right, in what they're doing. Um, but unfortunately, some business owners don't allow their employees to flourish. And I have seen it so many times over the years, where um, the the people that they have working for them, they haven't actually even identified what their real strengths are. They've employed them or engaged them for a particular role, but they haven't asked, what else they can offer. And so many people can offer so much that it's incredible. It doesn't matter what position they're in. And this is why I love small business, because small business is the backbone of every economy in every country.
Mhm.
And if we continue to support that, the community grows. They create more income than any of the majors, any of the corporate organizations. Um,
Mhm.
but the fear is there. Most people are fearful of going into business, that they're going to lose everything. And when you go into a business thinking that way, it's a bad way to start. But as an entrepreneur, and having employed literally thousands of people over the years, I've seen it multiple times where, if you engage with your people and show them that they care and show them that they are valued, you will gain so much more out of them. And I remember, I was speaking in the US many years ago, and probably about 7 or 8 years ago now, and I had shared a story, and I've got so many stories that I've experienced of my own, that I could be talking about customer service, for example, and I could I could be doing a tour, and at every city I'll be telling a different story about customer service because I've got so many customer service stories, but they're my stories, right? And I was sharing a story about building a team, and it was a story about a janitor that I used to have working for me, and he'd been with me 10 or 12 years, and he was an amazing guy. And I've never had anybody that took the time and cleaned the way that this person cleaned. But he felt isolated, because he suffered from depression, and he was just a lovely guy. And I, long story short, I basically connected with him because he used to work through the night. So he used to start at 6 p.m. and finish at 3 or 4 a.m. And I would usually leave the office by about 5 p.m. So we'd rarely ever meet. And I connected with him one day, and he'd been off for a few days, and I just shared with him how important he was, and he couldn't believe it. Like, he really couldn't believe that I was saying how important he was. But the moral of the story is that from that day on, he became part of the team, and he would go and actually push the rest of the team during the night because we'd have two shifts. We'd run 24 hours, 7 days a week. So he would actually go and push the rest of the staff because he felt that he belonged. And I was sharing this story on stage in the US one time, and I got off stage, and as I went into the green room, I got approached by a gentleman, and I didn't realize who he was at the time. And he said to me, "That's a great story, young man." He said, "I remember," he said, when I took over one of the companies, he said that I took over. He said I had to get rid of some people, and he said, and we did an exit interview, and he said, and there was this gentleman that came to me, and he said, "What have I done wrong?" He said, "I've been here 22 years." He said, "What have I done wrong?" He said, "You're letting me go." And he said, "Well," he said, "your performance is not up to scratch." He said, "So, we're sort of having a look at performance, and we have to let you go." And he said, "I've been working at this company for 22 years." And he said, "For 22 years, you've paid me for my hands." He said, "Not once in that 22 years have you asked me for my brain." And it was a massive lesson for him. And um, the moral of the story is that you listen to your employees and ask them what they think that you could be doing better that would give you more productivity or more efficiency in your business, and they will tell you because they're standing there on the line. And anyway, it's incredible when you actually get to share some stories because people then open up. But I've seen it a lot in businesses where people are engaged to perform a job and not necessarily being engaged to advance in their role.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I've always loved about Disney is that when you work at Disney and you're working on the park, you're actually part of their team performing. You're
Yeah.
actually on stage. That's what they say. So even if you're picking up rubbish, you are on stage and part of their team performing. And I think that's exactly what should be happening in all businesses, because if you take the time to do reviews of your team and understand what they can put forward to allow you to grow, and you implement that, that will see your business grow with so much more ease. So much more
Yeah.
ease. I saw a number of years ago in a business that I was mentoring at the time, and the owner was um, a real challenge. I was engaged by his son, but the father was a lot older. And I was walking through the facility one day, and I heard him having some argument or a dispute with one of the employees. And I wasn't really close to him, but one thing I did hear is he turned around and he said, "I don't pay you to think." And as soon as I heard that, I thought, wow, my goodness, like, can you imagine what would happen to that person? Do you think he will ever bring forward any form of idea or anything that would be able to help the business grow or evolve? Not at all. You've just shut it off. Whereas when I engage and do uh, you know team events, I always say, there is no such thing as a stupid idea.
Mm-hmm.
Bring your ideas forward. We may not be able to use them today, but we'll take them on board, because what that does is it keeps them thinking. But when you say, I don't pay you to think, then the person just switches off, and then it just becomes a job. At the end of the week, they want their pay, and that's all you're going to get. But if you
Mm-hmm.
build a good team, and even if you are starting out, the one thing that I would absolutely do is make sure that you engage a coach or a mentor, but do your due diligence to make sure it's the right coach and right mentor. One of the gripes that I have in the coaching industry, Des, for me,
Mm-hmm.
especially because I've experienced the cleanup of so many disasters, is that when a business coach is engaged and they've never owned a business and they don't understand what the client is going through or what pain they're feeling, and they give them advice, and the business owners are usually excuse me, usually in some sort of predicament that they just listen and they take it that what they're being told is great advice. um I've seen it too many times where they're left with a mess, and the coach then just leaves and leaves them holding the baby, and that's very sad. So a coach or a mentor in your business is really important at the beginning, not when you can afford it. It's at the beginning, whether you can afford it or not. You need to start off on the right foot, so your foundations are set right. It'd be
Mm-hmm.
like saying, no, we're going to build the house. We'll get to the concrete floor and foundation later. You don't do that. You always build the foundation first. So the coach or a mentor is your foundation, because from that you're able to then grow with somebody holding your hand.
Mm-hmm.
And what I say to my clients is, and obviously, today I'm at a very different level, and I'm, I don't mean to say it as in I'm better than anyone else, but I've got the experience, and I've had the years of doing what I do, and the amount of business. So I've got the credibility. So, um, my clients today usually come to me because they're in some form of challenge or issue in their business, and I always say to them, you always need to look for the people that can support your growth. And it doesn't matter if they're working directly for you or if you're just engaging them for a service. You need to build the right team. And the right team could be having the right lawyer, having the right accountant, having the right advisor. They don't need to be on your payroll weekly, but they need to be there as your team, because that's how you start. And then from there, rather, you can then grow a team that you will employ yourself. But a good business mentor who has been there and done that will allow you to shine, because they can see what you can't see.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're starting out and you're in business, you're starry eyed. You've got great aspirations. You've got a big vision, right? And you're starry eyed. But a coach will actually stop you from going off and getting distracted by the bright shiny objects,
Yeah. Of
and
which
keep you
there
on
are
your.
many,
Yeah, there
right?
are. Yeah, yeah. So, when you ask the question about, inspiration, inspiration comes from you allowing people, and sorry, I went around this a long way, but inspiration comes from you allowing people to flourish and to thrive by giving them the confidence that they can come to you and offer their view of what they're experiencing to help you grow your business with the vision that you've put in place.
Yeah. That requires two-way communication. It's not one directional, where a leader is somewhere on high just professing things to people. Because I love that example that you shared, where people have ideas and they have to have a place where they can harness those and be heard. I'm a firm believer that we overcomplicate life. And if we keep it simple and recognize that people want to be accepted, valued, and heard, let's figure out how to make that happen.
Yeah.
you know so that is really great advice. I want to shift to your book,
Yes.
because obviously there's a story behind speaking of inspiration, what inspired you to do that. It's a lofty journey in and of itself to write a book in the first place. So what inspired you, and what are you learning on the way now that the book is, here? Tell us more about that.
wrote the book. The book came about because everyone that I have mentored over the years has gained so much value. And there were a few people that said to me, Ralph, you've got to put all this into a book. And I thought, yeah, I'll get around to it one day. And, I had the aspiration to write my own book. I'd written a chapter in another book, and I'd written another small book that I used to give away at events when I was touring. But to actually write a proper book that that I wanted to write myself. I didn't want anybody to write it for me, and I had to know every word in it because it had to be real, it had to be authentic, and that's just how I am. And I guess it came to life during COVID. I really saw the devastation of what was happening, especially when it first hit us. And I wrote a program at the time, which was 21 day. It was a 21-day challenge from surviving to thriving, and it was I recorded it myself, and I basically gave it away for free during the pandemic, just to keep people upbeat, because there was a lot of doom and gloom. The world was doing a great job on putting fear in everybody, and everybody was just down and out, and there was some tragedies happening, and it was just a sad time. So from that, the response that I got and the feedback that I got from people that had actually done the 21-day journey just inspired me to actually write the book, because I knew I had so much to give. And one of the things that drives me and still drives me today is making a difference to the next generation. I really want to make a difference to the up and coming entrepreneurs that are our next generation, because they need the support. It's pretty tough at the moment. And, if we think we've had it tough, it's been really tough on the next generation coming through. Those that see it as opportunistic will gain value, and they will build on that strength, and they will flourish. But there are those that get caught up in the doom and gloom and are fearful to make a decision to move forward. So I thought, I've had a ton of experience. I've had, a lifetime in business. I know it's been 38 years, but it's really my life in business that I've had from a young age, that I wanted to share my journey, some of the challenges that I've been through. I've come close to bankruptcy 3 times. Never been bankrupt, but I've come close. And most people that get into the positions that I've been in would just put their hands up and say, I'll just, go bankrupt and start again. And I've seen that many times, but that was not an option for me, because for me, it was like, I'm going to hurt somebody. If I just go bankrupt, somebody's going to get affected. They're not going to get paid. So I basically navigated my way through that every time. But every time I did that, I grew. I grew from the experience, and I learned from that experience. And that's, invaluable, because I've actually been through it, and no university in the world can teach you that. And yes, it's cost me millions and millions of dollars, but the experience is what I come away with. And I come away with it because I've been able to learn, I've been able to grow, and I've been able to evolve. Most people that go through that challenge just sit in the corner and cry about it, and they are basically in doom and gloom for the rest of their life, and they live their life moving forward in that fearful state. So they don't take the lesson out of it. They only take the pain, and they're reliving that pain every day. So I wrote the book with the view of being able to make it an easy read, because I didn't go to uni. So therefore, I had a very rough childhood, in the sense that, I was bullied very badly at school, and I hated school. So I didn't learn as well as anyone else. So most of the journey of where I've been on has been self-taught, and I've done a lot of courses, personal courses, that have gotten me to where I am today. But I've continued to push through. So for me, it was about writing the book in a way that's easy to read. I didn't want to put words in it to make me look good, but then somebody would need a dictionary to go and find out what that word meant, right? So I wrote it the way that I would want to read it. And I also wrote it, even though the book flows from start to finish, I wrote it in a way where, if you wanted to open the book at chapter 5 and start reading it there, you can do that, right? So It's a book that shares my journey, my wisdom, but gives you the opportunity to be able to tap into that and say, yeah, I've had a similar experience, but I wasn't sure how to come out of it. And this is how you do it. This is what I did. I don't tell people what they should do. I can only share what I've done and how it served me. So from my experience and what it's cost me is what I want to give back and allow people to be able to learn um, from what I've experienced and the losses that I have had, for them not to make those same mistakes, or to avoid making those mistakes, or at least identify where the markers are, where the barriers are. Because whenever you're moving forward, and entrepreneurs like to they see, they got one setting in their speed, and that's just fast. So everybody wants to go fast, right?
Accelerator.
That's it. It's just like speed is everything. And I wrote a blog on that once, and it's that, as the signs say on the roads when you're driving, that speed kills. The same
Oof.
applies in business. Speed kills. So you need to sort of slow down a little bit and just look for what could be a marker or a red flag, and take note of that. And if you can take note of the red flag and then mitigate that risk, when you get to a challenge, you've already sort of mitigated it and you're prepared for it. Why
Mhm.
most people fail and never get back up is because they weren't aware of what may potentially be a challenge for them.
Mhm.
So I'm always saying, ask yourself the question, what is it that I'm missing? What can't I see? Because when you ask yourself that question, you'll start to look a little bit deeper at what could potentially be a challenge for you moving forward. And one challenge that no one saw was obviously COVID, right? So that's, one in a million that you won't see. But if you're in an industry where you know really, really well, what could be a challenge for you? In fresh food and food manufacturing, Mother Nature is a big challenge, because if you have a flood or a drought, or you know that has a big effect on your product and your supply chain. So you need to identify this, and it's the same in every business. Every business. So I like to sort of get people focused on the mistakes that I made and how I navigated out of that, so it can help them just identify where they're at in life and what they need to be mindful of. And it's not just about business.
Mm.
I was married for 25 years, and went through a sad divorce that I didn't see coming because I was too involved in my business. And that is in the book as well, excuse me, how I navigated through that. So it's not just about about business. It's about my journey in life, and
Absolutely.
it encapsulates everything. It's the journey of the business and the challenges in there. It's a journey in my marriage, and what happened there, and the upbringing of my three children, and where I am today, and what I work with my clients, and being able to share that and give back. It's not about me being out there and being the highlight of it. It's like, look at me, look at me. It's not that at all. It's about me being able to just give back and leave this world knowing that I've been able to make a difference, because that's my calling. My
Yeah.
calling is to be able to make a difference in somebody else's life. And if it's one person at a time, then that's all I want to achieve.
And I say that all the time to people who are in the space of influence and inspiration. It is one person at a time. That's the engagement that you have and the impact from moment to moment is that. And if you accomplish that, then you are winning. Of course, do you want that one person to turn into 100 and 1,000 and 1,000,000? Of course, that's a great aspiration, but it does start with one person at a time. And speaking of one person, there's something else exciting that's happening with your book, because you met a person. And tell us about what's happening now.
So I was blessed to be a special guest on a webinar, and on the same webinar was another special guest who just happened to be the owner of Morgan James Publishing in New York, a gentleman by the name of David Hancock. And we connected really well. I sent him a copy of my book, not thinking anything more than just me wanting to send a signed copy of my book, as I will to you. And I got a call from him a couple of months later saying that he absolutely loved it and the team loved it, and he wanted to take over the publishing rights for the book and to be done on a global scale. So the book is now being rewritten in 20 different languages, and it is going to hit the bookstores in the US and Canada on the 1st of July. So we're very close to it being put out there. We're doing a lot of pre-marketing preparation to let people know about it, and there it is there. So looking forward to changing some people's lives. Yeah.
Ralph, that is huge. And I just want to say, that is the power of purpose and intentionality and service. Because when you're out there in the world helping people, you will connect with other human beings who want to help people, and then your message has magnitude. And that's exactly what you're accomplishing. And so the question is, um, how can we get the book? So people are like, I want that information. Is there any kind of pre-ordering or
Yeah.
maybe through your website or something like that?
Yeah. So the easiest way, I guess, is to go on the book website, which is lifedonerightbook.com.
Perfect.
And
Life
that's
Done Right
and
book.
look, and it's available in most of the larger bookstores in the US, Barnes and Noble being the most prominent one. So you can purchase it there. You can purchase it online. There is a pre-order process at the moment, but it'll
Mhm.
actually be on the bookshelves as a physical book in July, and I'm looking forward to that. So
Oh my gosh.
which will probably get me over there, possibly later in the year, to do some touring and book signing as well. We'll just see how we go.
Yeah, that's exciting. Congratulations. That's really big. And I can't wait for the world to receive everything, all the wisdom that you have to offer, because there are entrepreneurs being born by the moment these days. And I do think it's a beautiful thing, with as much as our world. And I can very confidently say world. We're not just talking about the US. We're not just talking
Yeah.
about Australia. There's been a lot of tragedy. There's been a lot of disaster and things that we can look at that may make us, have some sadness. But I do think that there is a tremendous amount of hope for the future and for the generations that are going to be running our businesses and cultivating all the new ideas that make us, such a wonderful global economy that we have today. And so you are one of the people that are helping, because that I like to say, pay it forward,
Yes.
right? For every hardship that we've experienced, if we can help another person make it a little bit easier, then you've done a good service, in the world. So, Ralph, I want to ask you a few questions that'll
Sure.
help people get to know you a little bit better. And the first question that I have is, what makes you unbreakable?
Oh, that's a interesting question. Um, I think it's being able to navigate through challenging times, look at um, what led me to where I am, understand how I got there, um, sit with it, and then continue to move forward. Learn from the experience and continue to move forward. It's okay to sit and ponder for a little bit and be in your doom and gloom, but don't stay there. Don't live in that space, because that's not who you are. That doesn't determine who you are. What
Mhm.
determines who you are is the strength that will push you forward. That's the power that we all have. That the experience of what you've gone through doesn't determine who you are as a person. What determines who you are as a person is what drives you to get out of bed every day, and that's the difference.
That is huge. Do not wallow It is not a fun place to stay.
No,
Okay, what about a self-limiting belief? What's a self-limiting belief that you've had to overcome?
that's. I guess it's like everybody has that one belief where they think they're not good enough, and it's usually because somebody told them something that they hung on to.
Yeah.
And my view is what you think of me, my view today, this is, I mean, I've had to, I've come a long way, let me tell you. There's been a lot of internal learnings, but for me today, there's what you think of me is none of my business. I don't.
Absolutely.
There was a time, honestly, where I would get up on stage, and God forbid, was there a hair out of place, or I used to get up in a suit with a shirt and tie, and I used to like, and I was just wasn't comfortable. It wasn't me, and I used to worry about what the person down in the last row, in a room of 5,000 people was thinking of me. Reality is that in a room of 5,000 people, there's always going to be 10 people that don't like you or are going to talk about you. But if you put your focus on those 10 people, 4,990 people are going to miss out on what you've got to deliver. So therefore, I don't care what those 10 people think about me or are saying about me, because it's none of my business. And I'm not going to get caught up in it. I'm going to give value to the people that want to hear and want to learn and appreciate what I'm offering. And that's how I am today.
Yeah, that's powerful. That is really powerful, and it brings me to my question about then a superpower of yours. What is something that you are proud of that you do well?
So when I went through, I've been divorced now nearly 8 years, and when I went through that journey, it was very painful for me because I didn't expect it. It happened suddenly, and I was in a really bad place for a couple of years, and I did a lot of internal work. And one of the things that I learned, that I really loved and appreciated, and I've done a lot more learning since, and I'm still learning today, um, is that I have a spiritual mentor, and that spiritual mentor that I meet with, regularly, has taught me how to understand energy and how to feel and read the energy in a room. And I can actually walk into any room and I can feel what is in there. When I'm speaking with someone, I understand their body language, and I can actually feel their own energy. And most times I don't even know that, and I don't share it, of course. But it's the superpower that I guess I have, if you want to call it a superpower today, that allows me to tap into somebody else's energy.
Yeah. I think it takes experience and it does take inner work to have the self-awareness first and then the social awareness, the external awareness around you. But it is, and I can relate to that after having gone through um divorce, and it's challenging. It's challenging. There's a lot of reflection, but there's a some reinvention as well, which is really beautiful on the other side of that type of experience that can be so difficult. um what is something on your bucket list, Ralph?
Well, I really want to travel again and just enjoy some of the places that I haven't seen around the globe, that I really need to do more of, and I'm looking forward to that when that time comes. So my kids are all grown now. They're all adults and they're living their own lives, and they don't need for anything. So I'm able to do that at some stage soon. But um, I'm in the process of an acquisition of a business at the moment, because I really want to get back into the food space. I just love it, and especially with what we've seen with COVID. We talk about opportunities, and I look at that all the time, and I'm just keen to do that, and yeah, just start enjoying a little bit more. One of the things that I haven't done for a long time is I have a pilot's license, so I fly helicopters, and I love helicopters, and I haven't flown for a while. I've actually got an appointment tomorrow. I'm going back out to where I used to fly, and getting started again, because it's just one of the things that I love doing is flying.
Well, that is beneficial in terms of travel. I mean, that's exciting. You've got your helicopter rides and travel adventures ahead.
Yep.
It's your turn to prioritize your things as you've done that for many years for your three children. So I like that a lot. Um, Ralph, if there was one last piece of advice that you could give to anyone that's listening right now, what would it be?
I think it comes back to time, Des. I think most people don't value time until they don't have enough of it anymore. And the older you get, the less we have, and I would just say, make every moment count. Make every moment count. I've learned that, and I went through a challenge, as recently as our last lockdown, which was sort of last year, August, September, on a personal scale, and you just reflect, and it's like we just, sometimes we just don't appreciate the time that we have, with people, and you just need to take more make a more conscious decision to not waste the time that we have.
Yeah. Oh, that's so much needed in terms of replaying that every day. I think we take for granted uh, time, and it is something that you do not get back.
No.
So, whatever you don't take advantage of today, it will not be here tomorrow. So, that is so true. But I sincerely appreciate you taking this hour to share your knowledge, your experience, and to be so honest and vulnerable. I think if we can have more conversations like this, to just say life is imperfect. There's going to be things that we screw up,
Yep.
but we're going to learn along the way, and we're going to do the best we can to pay it forward to others. Um, then I think it'd be a better place.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
it'd be a better place. So, thank you for being a part of making this a better place. I'm really excited for your book, and I will let you know when I make my way in your direction.
Please do, because I would love to host you.
Oh, thank you so much.
And
This
thank
has
you
been
so much for
amazing.
having me on your show. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I've really enjoyed our time together.
Awesome. And then one last thing is a website, or if there's a place where people can follow you and just keep up with what you're doing. I know you talked about the book. Is there another place that they might go just to
Yep.
find you?
So it's just ralphanania.com.
Excellent.
Just my
Perfect.
name.com, and everything's on there.
I like that. Just don't, again, let's not overcomplicate things.
No.
Perfect. I'll make sure that that link, as well as the book link, is in the show notes. So people can, if they're listening to this while they're driving or something and didn't catch that, you can always look back in the show notes and be able to click on that information very easily. But thank you again so much for coming on.
My pleasure.
Ralph Anania. Wow. Wow. So much knowledge in that interview. 4 decades nearly of experience. And I'm thrilled to be able to receive his book and gain even more information. There are so many things that I can highlight from this episode as a recap, as action points to take away. This is what I would say. As you're listening right now, there's two specific things that I want to leave you with as homework assignments. Number one is to do a check. Ask yourself the question, who else do I need on my team? What is it that you may be spending a little bit too much time on that you could use some expertise, that they have a lane that you don't? And you need to be honest with yourself to say, I need to stay in my lane, and this is expertise that I need so I can focus on my giftings, talents, and abilities, and have that individual do this other stuff that I shouldn't be doing. That's the first question. The second question is somewhat related, but a bit broader, which is, what am I missing? Which Ralph talked about that too. What am I missing? As you're thinking about the space that you're in right now, You could be running your own business, and if you're not that person, maybe it's within the company that you are working for or in. That's still a great question. What are you missing? What could that be? Is it around mentorship and coaching? Is it the time that you need to spend doing something else, expending more energy toward? Those are the two things that I would leave you with. Obviously, there's so many parts of this podcast that you could replay because they're just tremendous. Ralph is tremendous. Go check out, the show notes for the links to be able to get his book. Follow him. He's such a great inspiration. But with that, remember, you truly are your only limit. And the way that we get past that is to do what? You guessed it, to take action. If you haven't been here before and it's your first time, that is a mantra of mine. And if you have been here, you've heard that a lot. For all 80, what episode are we on? All 87 episodes. And if you listen to my previous podcast, Bliss Beyond Fear, you heard it 69 other times. So well over 100 times, because it really is the thing that I believe. We're not guaranteed tomorrow. Time is the most precious commodity that we have. If you don't take the action now, that's a lost opportunity. Ralph talked about that with time. So I truly mean that with all sincerity. And that's the reason that you hear it all the time. But please do subscribe and follow, rate and review this episode. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. It means a lot to me. Your support means a lot to me. If there's anything that you want to hear about, if there is a guest that you want to be on the show, if you are somebody who wants to be on the show, reach out to me, des@bornunbreakable.com. And thanks for tuning in. See you next time.